things going this way, sometimes I'm not. Yeah, last night I chose to do it that way, and I just got so enamored in this weird movie from 2001. The movie felt like a time machine. It's like I was watching this culture that does not exist anymore. It's one of those teenager movies where they're like in college and they're drinking. There's a lot of naked women and really racist, sexist humor, and it's really crude and goofy and stupid. And I'm like, this is so bizarre because this doesn't exist anymore. This kind of film. This is like Al Jolson's blackface or something. And in a way, it's like a cultural time machine. And you get to go and for a brief moment see like this comedy that somebody concocted in 2001 which seems so racist. But it's such in that film, you get evidence of this weird cultural change. There's just a weird, massive cultural change that's happening as far as where we're allowed to joke around about things. And it's racist shit in that movie. Like racist and sexist shit. Violence, like men punching women in the face and shit like that. You can't really do a comedy thing. And that's like and what is life if we can avoid getting hit by a rock, blowing ourselves up, Yellowstone blowing up our face. If we keep going, I think we're on a great path. I think we're on a great path. It's a hazardous path. It's a path of the road. It's not for certain. But humanity is at one of those moments, probably at a crossroads, where you kind of stand on the edge of an abyss and you don't quite know what lies ahead. And we can take a really great us. And I think that the issue is that we do actually have each other's children to be that way. I see a lot of positive out there in the world. I see people like waking up and they are questioning those put out with the bullshit and if that's happening in the realm of politics, it's happening in the realm of corporations, it's happening in the realm of investigating the past. We're just not going to be told what to do anymore. That's encouraging, but then on the other side, there are huge efforts being put precisely into making people think in certain ways, whether it's the advertising industry, whether it's political messages, and so we have to be aware of that. And it could go down the drone path, I mean like the beehive path, which would be a white beam model societies tend to do a beehive existence, or it could go down an expansion of consciousness and the realization of the incredible, beautiful potential of the place. I honestly feel like that's where it's going.
I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic.
Well, that's beautiful to hear because this is a time. Like I was watching a John Oliver show. It's a great show on HBO. Very funny guy, and he's very left-wing leaning, and as is his show. But they had this fuck 2016 thing where they were just naming off all the horrible things that happened in 2016, and they're just saying goodbye to this terrible year. I'm like, yeah, a lot of good shit happened this year too. There's a lot of fantastic discoveries, a lot of interesting observations, a lot of people learned a lot of things in 2016 as well. And I think that...
And quite a number of American states have made cannabis legal.
Yes, I think,
it's a huge development.
It's also it's going to be a big factor in our cultural evolution. It really will.
It was a big factor. In the 60s, it was a huge factor. In effect, what happened, you had a very closed, conservative society, and you had an outside shock in the form of the psychedelic drugs that came in and completely stirred up everything in art and music and fashion and even into scientific concepts of our place in the universe and time and space and in so many ways that had just a major impact on the direction that our society went. And what would be the equivalent today or in our near future in terms of an outside shock that would suddenly wake people up would be another thing. And based upon everything that I've seen, it would suggest that events like that are going to happen, and probably within our lifetime. And when it does happen, especially if the message of the story has been out and enough people have heard it, 5% of the people or 10% of the people are aware that there is this major impending potential paradigm shift. And then we have an event like that, an event like the booster. I think that's all it would take because the magnitude of that event would have been such that it occurred today, and you had anywhere from 1 million to 2 million people instantly wiped out or a whole city instantly annihilated from a shot from space, what effect would that have on the planetary consciousness?
And which, with this latest exercise, NASA coming late to the party finally seems to be getting them. But what happened if happened if LA is hit by a 350-foot diameter?
Right, and that's the thing is because when the probability models for a Tunguska type event were first laid out in the 50s and 60s and even the 70s, it was pretty much determined that it was like something that would happen once a millennium, once every couple of millenniums. Then it sort of got contracted to once every few centuries. You know, it may be that it's actually much more like 1 or 2 a century, or maybe even perhaps clustered events where you may have 3 or 4 or half a dozen of those type of events occurring over a very short window of time. But an event like that happens, not one that would be called the extinction of civilization by any means, but an event like that that could, wipe out 1,000 square miles of landscape completely in an instant would have a major effect, I think, on the people of this planet. It would focus minds. It would focus minds in a way that nothing else would. And it's not to me is it pessimistic to say that might be what it's going to take, or is it just realistic? I don't know.
Well, I think it's like the massive impact versus the slow trickle effect. I mean, is it going to happen eventually, or is it going to happen in one gigantic swoop because of an event like an asteroidal impact where it kills a bunch of people and we wake up to the fragility of our existence?
But either way, it's a waking up of humanity, and that is in process. That is happening. That is in process now. Look, as a Brit, observing what's been happening in America as an outsider, I'm enormously encouraged by the legalization of cannabis that is taking place and what it all means. Sure, I like to smoke a joint, but this is not about it. It's not about recreation. What this is about is recognizing the sovereignty of animals to make decisions on their own bodies, their own health, and their own consciousness while doing no harm to others. That's what it's about, and that's a really fucking important issue. That, for me, that is the most important issue, because if you live in a society where adult sovereignty over one's own body and one's own consciousness, then that cannot be a free society in any meaningful way. So I applaud the people of America in those states who have voted for full legalization. That's a brilliant thing to do, and that's going to have an impact around the world, because the war on drugs, all the ideology and lies about cannabis are all going to be proved wrong. We don't know that the emperor wears no clothes, that you can legalize cannabis and civilization does not fall apart, as the war on drugs has been telling us for ages. It's going to change everything, and it's a beautiful thing for the American people, whereas the American state, America has a governmental state presence on the world stage, and being the dark force behind the world. So it's for me a beautiful thing that the Americans were wiping that back and saying, we will not do this shit anymore.
What you were talking about earlier is really important too. We talked about the different factions of our civilization creating this day. We're still creating disinformation. We're still trying to mislead people. But that goes to what we were talking about before, where it's a system. It's essentially and I think they've got almost the consciousness of their own. It's scary. Yeah, the bureaucracies on the bureaucracies, they kind of piss them off. Well, even when there's no financial stake in it, there's just a social stake. Like what you're seeing right now with the left versus the right. Like there's some people, like my friend Wanda Sykes just got booed off stage at some thing last night apparently, where she went on some anti-Trump rant, and people got super upset with it. There's these systems that are in place, this almost like wanting to fight. Like it's not. It sets us up in this bizarre team mentality where this left protects its ideas of the future and the right protects its ideas. And I'm watching these people go at it back and forth on social media, and it's toxic. It's so compromised by toxic sexuality or toxic masculinity. There's so many people this desire to fight each other. People have it's horrible. It's toxic. Toxic is the right word. Exactly. And I think that we have to resist the urge to fight. I think when people push too far on the left, that's when the right push too far on the right, that's when the right comes up. And that's when you can't speak in it. have all these weird factions coming out that are so and a lot of times the things that they don't have in common is either because of ignorance or it's because of an ideological dispute or lack of communication. And I think if those three things are in place, at least open lines of communication, which is also fostered by marijuana. And if these people talking openly and vulnerably about these things, and you find out that a lot of our misgivings and our misunderstandings about each other are just misconceptions, miscommunications, and we probably, even if we disagree on things, we have friends that we disagree on a lot of stuff with, but we're very close. Yeah, because you're allowed to have different opinions. Of course, that's what makes the world interesting. It doesn't have to be we hate each other because
we can listen to somebody else's opinion with empathy rather than with hatred or anger.
Yeah, it's too attractive to be on a team. Fucking amazing. Yeah, it is, man. It's too attractive. It's too attractive to me. We love Ocean State. We love
We've not really evolved out of that. There's also structures where we still try to
they've actually just like this is the place so you're going to see this is the shit. This is great. This from the top of the ridge, you see the agriculture down to the river is about 1,000. Wow. So basically, you've got a huge sheet of water, 300 to 400 feet. It's rushing over and it finds the lowest spot within the ridge, and that's where it starts focusing its attention. And as it does, it begins to just strip away the rock. Now, what we're looking at is this cataract is about half an hour. And the water people use there's tunnels. Those are potholes. Potholes are formed by underwater. In a flood this swiftly moving with this much turbulence, you literally have particular entities, high intensity, high amplitude, high energy, underwater tornadoes, literally underwater tornadoes. Now, these underwater tornadoes are typically, in this case, about a half a mile wide. Oh my God! And they're spinning at a high rate of speed, and they're right there. They're probably 600 feet deep because the water pouring over the river is at least 200. And you can see what it's done to the bedrock. Anybody listening, you gotta look at this. You have to look at this and then listen to the scale. This is a gigantic scar in the landscape, of which there are hundreds around this the exact location. You can't win this. This is Potholes Cataract. The exact location.
Somebody wants to get to it. We're in Washington State still?
Yes, we're in Washington State. Central Washington, we're right on the Columbia River, just below Wenatchee.
Okay, where we saw that huge eruption, that giant 18,000 there in Chile, an iceberg floating on the flood, an iceberg the size of an oil tanker, carrying an 18,000-ton boulder, carried on the flood, ground 700 feet up the valley side, rests there as the flood waters recede, the ice melts away, and the boulder is left sitting there.
We're going to look at a picture of that boulder in a second. What do the people back in this part of the country, what do they think about this? Well, they're only just catching on to what they're sitting on top of. The first time I went out here in '98,